the last several days, there's been mounting pressure on Download Festival, which is taking place this weekend, to sever ties with one of its biggest sponsors, Barclays, over its ties to the Israeli government in the midst of that war taking place in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas. Now, numerous bands have either dropped off the lineup or threatened to as a result of this sponsorship, with the end result being that they are no longer associated with Download Fest. They've been removed from the ad mat and they are not sponsoring the event anymore, as well as multiple other events. They are also dropped off. They apparently signed a multi-year deal with Live Nation, and that deal is still in place, but they're not going to be sponsoring these specific events. Now, let's take a look more at the ramifications of this. And there are people who feel strongly on both sides of this issue. And we're going to take a look at all of the perspectives in this situation. This is from The Guardian. It says, Barclays suspends sponsorship of Download, Latitude, and Isle of Wight festivals. The move follows protests from bands and fans over the bank providing financial services to defense companies supporting Israel. Now, as I mentioned, Live Nation has some sort of a multi-year deal with Barclays, and it says they've suspended their sponsorship of all Live Nation festivals for 2024, including Download, Latitude, and the Isle of Wight, after protests from bands and fans over the bank providing financial services to defense companies supplying Israel. The bank signed a 5-year deal with Live Nation in 2023. It's understood that the suspension does not apply to the entire contract. It says a spokesperson for Live Nation said, following discussion with artists, we've agreed with Barclays that they will step back from sponsorship of our festivals. Spokesperson for Barclays added, Barclays was asked and has agreed to suspend participation in the remaining Live Nation festivals in 2024. Barclays customers who hold tickets to these festivals are not affected and their tickets remain valid. The protesters' agenda is to have Barclays debank defense companies, which is a sector we remain committed to as an essential part of keeping this country and our allies safe. They continue, they have resorted to intimidating our staff, repeated vandalism of our branches, and online harassment. The only thing that this small group of activists will achieve is to weaken essential support for cultural events enjoyed by millions. It's time that leaders across politics, business, academia, and the arts stand united against this. Now, the movement for this sponsorship from Barclays to be dropped by Download Festival was started by a group called Bands Boycott Barclays, and they responded to this sponsorship being ended with Download Festival. Here's their statement. They wrote, "This is a victory for the Palestinian-led global BDS movement. As musicians, we were horrified that our music festivals were partnered with Barclays, who are complicit in the genocide in Gaza, through investment loans and underwriting of arms companies supplying the Israeli military. Hundreds of artists have taken action this summer to make it clear that it is morally reprehensible, and we are glad we have been heard. Our demand to Barclays is simple: divest from the genocide or face further boycotts. Boycotting Barclays, also Europe's primary funder of fossil fuels, is the minimum we can do to call for change." Now, a co-executive for Greenpeace UK also welcomed the suspension. They said Live Nation have done the right thing by stepping away from their Barclays sponsorship. It's time for Barclays to stop hiding behind the music and face it instead. The bank is the biggest fossil fuel funder in Europe, bankrolling oil and gas to the tune of billions of pounds, and has now been linked to arms companies involved in the conflict in Gaza. By putting an end to greenwashing, festival organizers are sending a clear signal to Barclays that it's time they took responsibility for the destructive industries they fund. Now, this really started out with a small protest with just a few bands that were pulling off of the festival. Scowl was one of them, and they have pulled off of other events as well. But what you really saw here in Europe was a lot of these bands, they stood together. They felt very strongly about this. And this is after just last month, more than 100 acts actually pulled off of a festival that was also sponsored by Barclays. So you can see Barclays' response where they're not backing down either. And so this is one of those situations where they're going, hey, we're going to keep supporting these contractors, as they literally mentioned in their statement. And the bands are going, well, we're not backing down from this either. So likely what you're going to see going forward is any additional events that Barclays is involved in from a music perspective. I would expect they're probably going to be protesting this as well. But Barclays is saying this is more than just a protest. They're seeing their own employees being threatened, harassed, and their facilities even being vandalized. Here's more. So according to BBC's reporting here, you have Barclays branches across UK targeted by protesters. This is the very same week that all of this dialogue is happening with relation to the sponsorship from Barclays of Download Festival. Let's take a look. It says Barclays Bank branches in England and Scotland have been covered in red paint and had windows smashed as part of protests by a pro-Palestine group. Up to 20 buildings have been targeted, according to the group Palestine Action. It said the protests were carried out to demand the bank divest from Israel's weapon trade and fossil fuels. And this is one of those things that's really controversial and is widely criticized by people, where you do have banks that are financing wars. And that is something that makes people very angry. Barclays spokesperson reacted to this. It says, while we support the right to protest, we ask that campaigners do so in a way which respects our customers, colleagues, and property. In Bristol, the windows of a city center branch of Barclays Bank were smashed and red graffiti sprayed over the building. Meanwhile, rocks inscribed at another location with the names of Palestinians killed in the conflict were thrown at a Barclays building, the protesters said. So this is a really unique situation. It's not often that you see a big corporation facing the type of pressure that Barclays is right now respond as defiantly as they are responding, as you just read in that statement, where they're saying that they're going to continue to support these defense contractors who are involved over there in that war in the Middle East. And then at the same time, you have these bands that are willing to forego major paychecks, and that's what you get at these festivals because of what they believe in. They really feel strongly about this, and so they're willing to even miss out on income because they feel so strongly. And so those concerns are definitely worth listening to. Let's take a look at what some of these bands had to say. Dying Wish, they were one of the biggest bands that were talking about dropping off of this lineup. They said that they actually listened to their concerns and they had a very calm interaction with them throughout this protest process. So this was the statement from Dying Wish. It says, either Download will drop the Barclays sponsorship or we will be dropping the festival. We will not be involved without it. We appreciate your patience over the last few days as we sort this out. Shout out to every band and person involved in the boycott, and free Palestine. Now, this is their response to the news of the sponsorship being terminated with Download Festival. This was the statement that Dying Wish released earlier today after learning that the sponsorship had been terminated. They said, Download has informed us that they have officially removed Barclays as a sponsor from their festival. We will be playing tomorrow as scheduled. We never wanted to let anyone down and celebrate the news that the boycott was successful. Huge thank you to everyone who was involved in making this possible. They added, we appreciate the understanding and support as we stand by something that truly matters to us. That's the thing about this, is a lot of these people do seem they feel very strongly about this. And this is one of those really complicated issues in war where you have people who really believe in what they're saying to the extent they're willing to forego very significant paychecks to make their point. So they said, we're standing by something that truly matters to us. We are so proud to be a part of a community that can come together and create change. That being said, we cannot wait to see you tomorrow at the Dogtooth stage with love, solidarity, and free Palestine forever. Dying Wish. You also have Inner Shikari reacting to the news of this. They're also scheduled to play Download Festival. This was their response. They said that they'd been having an ongoing dialogue with Download Festival and they'd been working with them on this issue. Here's more. They wrote, Barclays has pulled out of Download. There's been mounting pressure for bands to drop out of Download Festival due to the involvement of Barclays Bank. We've been in talks with Download themselves, expressing our serious objection at Barclays' involvement. We have considered all options and along with other artists have been working tirelessly on this. We don't believe in rush reactions and always want the best outcome for all involved. Thanks to this collective pressure, we now believe we have achieved that. Barclays have pulled out of Download Fest. For those unaware, Barclays has large financial ties to Israeli weapons manufacturers and therefore complicit in genocide and has no place at our festivals. Big ups Download and bands boycott Barclays, who both engaged with us in a calm and considered manner. While this was being resolved, this is what we can achieve when we work together instead of dividing ourselves with attempts at moral purity. There are many understandable positions on this. Don't be malicious and don't be divided. It does not help the cause. And again, as they're pointing out, there are many understandable positions on this. I thought this was a pretty measured and reasonable statement here from Inner Shikari. It's always heartbreaking when there is a war going on and the world is in a very volatile place right now. And so I'm very much hoping that all of this can end very, very soon. So Download Festival will be taking place this weekend as scheduled. It's always a great time. I hope to get to go to that festival at some point. That is your latest update here from Rockfeed. Be sure to subscribe with notifications on for the latest news and updates about your favorite bands.